like to begin by talking about men's deodorant. Let's begin. How many people here have seen this ad before? Okay, I'm getting no hands here. So a couple here. All right, so this was one of the first ads that came up when I Googled men's deodorant ad. And by the way, between this and my excessive Googling of the Kardashians, I am now getting very weird targeted advertising. I would not suggest it. But so if I told you to look at this ad and make it better, how would you do it? Honestly, this is a pretty good looking armpit to me, but maybe you find someone with a better armpit. Maybe you hire a photographer who can have some better production quality, or a copywriter who improves the font and the wording. Either way, if you're working from the same general template, there's little incremental value that you can add by trying to make it better. But what if instead of asking you to make it better, I asked you to think about ways to make it different? And what if in trying to make it different, you came up with something like this? How many people have seen this ad? That's pretty much everyone in the room. And so I actually can't see his armpit that much, so I don't know if it's better. But you know, the photography quality is about the same, the copywriting and font is about the same, the product looks the same, but it's totally different. And it's different because it's hilarious, and no one expected a men's deodorant ad to be hilarious. And so it was hugely successful. Old Spice, in the first 30 days of launching this campaign, saw over 40 million views for the video, and they increased product sales by 107%. For Old Spice, doing something different produced drastically better returns than being better at the same template ever could have. Being better is something that we think about all the time, especially professionally. How to be a better colleague, a better manager, a better mentor. It explains how this insane group of overachievers is here at 9:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Yeah. Like, seriously, how is anybody here? It makes no sense. But thank you for being here. But what I find is that often, and especially for women, in thinking about how to be better, we focus on the ways in which we're worse. We look at everyone else's abilities, think about our deficits, and then how to close the gap. I experienced this intensely when I started at Energy Impact Partners. I had never worked in finance before, let alone venture capital, and all of my colleagues had a lot of experience in investment banking and investing. I was so insecure about how much better they were than I was at financial modeling, Excel shortcuts, and deal terms. And I was so overwhelmed by the prospect of trying to be as good as or better than they were in something that they had been doing for so long. But then I thought about some advice I got from a wise business school professor, and I started focusing on the ways I was different from my colleagues. I was in San Francisco, and they were in New York. I had a strong network between the energy industry and business school. I was in person with all these startups in the heart of Silicon Valley, and I had a lot of operating experience in the industry. And I realized that I had to absolutely master the fundamentals of the job in order to do it. But I need to focus on where I could add differential value, and that I could help my company that way so much more than hundreds of hours of Excel modeling ever could. So it was definitely still a steep learning curve in trying to master those finance fundamentals, but ultimately my company was already good at those things. And so focusing on how I was different was both more motivating and impactful. And in doing that, I realized that different is better than better. Now, when I say I learned this from a wise business school professor, it's probably not who you're thinking. So it was former supermodel and entrepreneur Tyra Banks. And Tyra, in my second year of business school, was teaching her first ever class. It was on personal brand. And she told us all about the pivots she'd done in her career, from supermodel to talk show host to creating America's Next Top Model to entrepreneur. And she said she was never the best at any of those things, but she was always different. And as a professor, she was not the best by any standard metric of experience or education or publications, but I learned more from her in 2 weeks than I did from any other professor. Now, I believe that different is better than better applies not only to antiperspirant and supermodels, it also applies to venture capital, the energy industry, and to women. In venture, we try to invest in startups that are going to grow and be successful in order to gain returns. And at Energy Impact Partners, we've talked to hundreds of companies. And while you can have successful startups that are doing an execution play, the vast majority of successful startups are doing something different. So let's take a look at the successful clean tech exits, venture-backed clean tech exits that we've seen in the past few years. Tesla built a sexy, awesome car that people wanted to buy, instead of a more environmentally focused one. O-Power dramatically changed the way people engaged with their electric bill, lowering energy usage, instead of making a better insulation. SolarCity invented a new way to finance solar projects, instead of making a better solar panel. And Nest created a beautiful thermostat that made people more comfortable, instead of trying to continue to make people change. In venture, being different produces much better outcomes and returns than being incrementally better at what everybody else is doing. Different is better than better applies not only to clean tech companies, it applies to clean tech workers. So this is a chart of where everyone in my business school class went after graduation. And you can see here that 63% of the class went to consulting, finance, or tech. 63%. Now, imagine trying to be the best ever management consultant. You're competing with an extremely large and qualified group of people in a very established industry. And even if you can be the best consultant in your class, how much better can you really be? And then what kind of impact can that have? But then if you look at the fact that only 3% of my class went to clean tech, energy including oil and gas and conventionals, and environment broadly defined, you realize that there's so much more opportunity to be better doing something different, and that's so much more achievable in our world. We have the opportunity to transform an industry that hasn't changed in a century, and at the same time we can do it while differentiating ourselves professionally. The last way that I want to focus on different is better than better is in regards to being women. For me, never do I feel more different than in situations like this, which I don't know about you, but is just about every conference I go to and every meeting I'm at, except maybe minus the suits and plus some Patagonia vests and Allbirds. And for me, this situation can sometimes be intimidating and uncomfortable. But luckily, and everyone say it with me, different is better than better. We're much more likely to be remembered if we're the only women in the room. Think about all the white male Matts there are at conferences. Like, I seriously can't keep them all straight. I would like to actually seriously thank all the men that are here today, including any white male Matts. Like, we really, really appreciate you coming. It's super important. Another way is that, setting biology aside, we have different experiences as women. And that creates a diverse perspective that people are increasingly looking for. And that can get us in the room sooner than we might be otherwise. And that's another opportunity to stand out. So from antiperspirant to Excel modeling, supermodeling, venture capital, clean tech, and women. Let's focus all of our tremendous energy, abilities, ambition into ways that we are wonderfully different. Because that's the only way that we can change the world for the better. Thanks.